Jehovah's Witnesses have had ongoing legal problems in Norway. I've covered it a lot on the channel. There's even a playlist of all of the different videos I've made about that. And I do have a little bit of an update for you because Watchtower just submitted a letter to the appeals court for them to consider about changes that they've made to their doctrine that might better align with the core principles of the Norwegian state. But in that letter, I gotta tell you, I don't think they're being completely honest. So let's talk about it. Now, in case you don't want to spend an hour watching 6 different YouTube videos or whatever it is, I'll give you the quick TLDR. Basically, because of the passionate work of some former Jehovah's Witnesses in raising awareness about a lot of the problematic principles and teachings and practices of the Jehovah's Witnesses that primarily affect minors and children, the government became interested in taking a look at those practices and making sure that they aligned with the principles and the values of the state. And they didn't. Not even a little bit. And so Watchtower was deregistered as a religion, and they lost some of the funding that they were receiving from the Norwegian government, which all religions there have access to. Now, because of this, they went to a court and then another court, and now it's in the Court of Appeals. I forget exactly where we are in the timeline, but Watchtower is trying to argue, no, we're not really that bad. We don't really have any practices that would negatively affect children. Now, their initial response to this is probably the most problematic aspect of this entire saga, and we'll get to that a little bit more later, but first I'll cover exactly what was said in this letter. But let me just remind you of exactly what their initial response was.
Thank you, Brother Pedersen. The authorities in Norway have threatened to remove our legal registration because of our scriptural beliefs and practices regarding disfellowshipping. In the future, various governments will challenge our freedom of worship. They may pressure us to change our scriptural beliefs, but we're certainly not going to do that.
So, as everyone within the ex-Jehovah's Witness community was commenting, making videos, talking about, and memeing on, this did not age very well, and we could all see it from a mile away. The hubris of these men was never going to stand up when you legitimately have to answer for your crimes against humanity, and they have looked completely foolish trying to make the arguments that they have in court. And I think that they are still going to make themselves look foolish for some very particular reasons. But let's see how Watchtower tries to make it appear that they have kind of sort of acquiesced, potentially not to the demands of the state, but just because God gave them some new information, essentially, and told them, hey, why don't you guys ease up on your shunning policy, even though we said initially we were never going to change anything about the disfellowshipping process. So let's take a look at this letter. Decisions on denial of state subsidies and loss of registrations for Jehovah's Witnesses, adjustments in Jehovah's Witness religious practice regarding limited contact with a person removed from the congregation. So they talk about how they've made some changes to people that have been removed or who have voluntarily withdrawn. They point to the Watchtower of August 2024 that talked about some of the changes that they did make. And then they go and talk about some of those changes that they have made, which again, we've covered a lot in this on this channel already, so we don't need to go into excruciating details, but I found this part to be particularly interesting. We wish to remind you that Jehovah's Witnesses believe in the Bible's guidance that believers should limit contact with someone who has been removed from the congregation or has withdrawn. The exact extent of this limited contact will depend on each individual's personal circumstances and conscience. Regardless of circumstances, Jehovah's Witnesses believe the Bible encourages us to show love and respect for all people, including those who previously shared our faith. Love and respect for those that have previously shared your faith? Watchtower, are you serious? This is such a load of horse manure. I can't believe that you had the coconuts to even write that out and sign it as if it were true. Now, there are certain things that people will say, well, that's not really a lie. That's not really a blatant falsehood or anything. I think that if you so egregiously violate language in a way to completely misrepresent your actual thoughts, opinions, and actions, that you may as well just call it a dang lie. Because this is them lying. Because what Jehovah's Witnesses not only say and think and how they treat anyone they deem to be an apostate is the farthest thing from love and respect that I can think of. If that is love and respect, then Joe Biden loves and respects Donald Trump. That is about as close as, that perfect example, actually. So just to reiterate and drive this point home, how about we do a classic Wally montage and look at exactly what Jehovah's Witness leadership have to say about people who have been formally members of their faith.
First, let's talk about apostasy, and we'll call it spiritual poison. Now think about poison. What's the best way to avoid being poisoned? Well, we have to recognize poison when we see it and then avoid it. And the same principle applies to teachings that could destroy our faith. And that's not always easy. Now, not many of our brothers and sisters would deliberately get involved with apostates, but it could happen without our realizing it. We receive letters at times from brothers and sisters who are troubled by something they saw on a web page, an accusation, a rumor about the society or about the organization. And the problem is, they had no idea that apostates were behind it. It's tricky, because the apostates don't advertise, "You are now on an apostate web page." They often pose as sincere witnesses who just have questions or concerns. And some who aren't really apostates can cause just as much trouble as the apostates do by their negative talk and criticism. Brothers, we need to be on the alert. This is serious. Suppose that, out of curiosity, you get into a discussion forum with individuals who claim to be Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You don't know. You've never met them. And someone starts asking questions. What did you think of last month's broadcast? Did you really find it encouraging? Or do you think the brothers who write Watchtower articles are living in the real world? I wonder if they realize just how hard it is out here. Now, someone might say, I need to get involved in that forum so I can help those people. They shouldn't be together. Even if they aren't apostates, they're not good for one another. Staying in that forum to help someone is like holding his hand while he drinks poison and then having some yourself so he doesn't have to drink alone. Now, another person might say, well, I can see where those warnings about apostates apply to so-and-so. He's weak, but don't worry about me. I'm spiritually strong. I can handle it. That's like a weightlifter, thinking that he can drink a vial of poison and it won't hurt him because he's so big and strong. We are not so strong, so spiritual, so intelligent, that we can't be affected by the poison of apostate ideas.
As Jehovah's sheep, reject the voice of strangers. The original stranger was Satan the devil. Like a ventriloquist, he made a serpent appear to talk, but the words were Satan's words. Satan thereby used his voice to slander Jehovah and deceive Eve. Today, Satan continues his work as an evil ventriloquist using not serpents, but human puppets to enunciate his voice, these acting as his agents, either wittingly or unwittingly. But what does the voice of strangers say on this subject? Don't trust the faithful slave. He will mislead you. And who often have the loudest voice promoting this false message? Apostates. Hebrews 13:9 labels false messages as strange teachings. Yes, they are the teachings of strangers. Some examples of their strange teachings are that the faithful slave protects pedophiles. Or that slave will exploit you so they can live lives of luxury. Those are both bald-faced lies. Acts 20:30 says that apostates speak twisted things. They do this in order to draw God's sheep away and make them followers of themselves. Something that's twisted is bent out of shape or distorted. They speak twisted things by leaving out vital details, taking things out of context, or in some other way manipulating a truth into a lie or into a misleading half-truth. 2 Peter 2:3 says, "They will greedily exploit you with counterfeit words." A counterfeit is something that's carefully designed to look like the real thing. Take, for example, counterfeit money. It might look genuine, but it's fake and thus worthless. If we're deceived into accepting it, we'll lose money. But if we're deceived into accepting the counterfeit words of apostates, we'll lose our life.
Well, here's a question. Are apostates today as reprehensible as those ones that Jude mentioned in his short letter? Are they devious? Or maybe they're sincerely trying to help poor, misguided witnesses? No, they're devious. Have you ever noticed that apostates generally do not try to reason from the Scriptures? Why not? Because they know we know the Scriptures and we would see through the twisting. Instead, they pick at the organization, they twist truth, they use lies, half-truths to try to grab a mind. Well, are they deceitful? Absolutely.
None of us like being told lies, but we are constantly bombarded with false stories. If we are not careful, they could harm us. Misinformation about Jehovah's organization and the governing body. Jehovah's Witnesses have been accused of promoting communism, while others claim that we promote the ideals and interests of American imperialism. Our brothers and sisters have been called anarchists, and nowadays we are being called extremists, and the list can go on. What will be the next lie? Remember, lies create doubts and destroy trust. Some of what we can hear and read is based off misinformation campaigns of apostates. It may sound convincing, even to us. Even if we now say, I will not believe it anyway, I'm just curious to know what it is. Exposing ourselves to this kind of misinformation can create doubts and undermine our complete trust in the governing body. This makes us vulnerable. Jehovah will use his organization to lead us through the great tribulation. There is just no other way to succeed.
I am not being hyperbolic. The leaders of the Jehovah's Witness organization have straightforwardly told their people that association with those that choose to leave their religion and don't agree with the governing body, don't agree with the teachings, the people that leave, they label them as apostates. An apostate is anyone that just leaves their former religion. But they are saying that they are poison. Not just this, like, hypothetical poison either. It will literally cost you your life if you listen to or associate with them. It's a life or death situation that the governing body creates here. You just heard them say it. If you associate with these people, if you listen to these people, it could cost you your life. So, now that we have that firmly established, how on God's green earth can they say that we show love and respect for all people, including those who were formerly Jehovah's Witnesses? These two things cannot exist in the same sentence. You are using words in an incomprehensible way. If someone comes up to me, hey, Wally, we need you to write out a political slogan for us because we want a further education in America. And I tell them, well, if Donald Trump was Ozempic, then America would be skinny. So every 2-child did, so I will. I think we can agree on that. Let's make America black again. I'm saying words in the English language, but they have no meaning because it's just a bunch of blah, 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 gobbledygook. I'm just saying stuff without just blurting crap out. That's what I feel that they're doing here. They are just blurting crap out of their faces when they have the audacity to say that they show love and respect. And then they turn around and tell their members they will poison you and it will kill you if you listen to those people. And then to turn around to a court and say, no, we love and respect them. Get the hell out of here, Watchtower. No one is going to believe you. No one's going to put up with your BS. You will be laughed out of court for trying to make these absurd and outrageous claims because you have redefined the words love and respect in such an absurd way in your minds that I guess it kind of tracks, though. They think love is shunning. Winston, you have to stop the licking. Sorry, when he starts licking, I just cannot focus and it drives me insane. But anyway, they have redefined this word of love as, oh, well, it's loving to never talk to someone again. I guess if you can redefine it in that way, then they don't think that they are misrepresenting their actual beliefs to the court of Norway, but they ain't gonna buy it. Now, the other thing that just first popped into my head about this is nothing is preventing Watchtower from re-registering as a religion, re-registering so that they can get state benefits again if they make the changes going forward in the future, because that's what this is all about. But what they're trying to do is get back some of the money that they lost by being deregistered and not getting those state subsidies. So I really butchered that word, but whatever, you know what I'm saying. So how is it exactly? And maybe I could be misunderstanding this. So I'm not Norwegian. I'm not their boots on the ground. So, don't take my word as Jesus here or anything. So maybe I've missed something along the plot line, but I just can't seem to comprehend how they think that they're going to get retroactively paid for not receiving those benefits of being a religion in Norway after they make the changes of their religion. You know what I mean? Like, surely they could say, okay, well, it looks like you guys have changed your policy, so therefore we'll allow you to get these state subsidies again. Okay, fine. They changed their shunning policy. Work's done. Let's get out of here and go have a beer. For me, tea. But I don't really think, maybe I'm missing something because I don't feel like Watchtower would just be so brain dead as to think that the Norway will be like, oh, now that you changed your policies in 2025, let's give you the money that you lost back in 2021 when this was a problem for your religion. So I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I need to just edit this whole thing out. But that was one of the very first things that I had to think about. Now, the big thing or the big talking point that I feel a lot of people will no doubt have about this is that the changing of Watchtower policies, the new light, the direction from Jesus, whatever you want to call it, has a price tag associated with it, that this is all about money. And I have a little bit of a hot take here, is I don't think that that is quite accurate. So let me explain my hot take. Now, because this is a hot take, sorry if I'm a little bit even more rambly than normal, but I want to try and elucidate why I kind of differ from people that think that this is about money. Because I think that this has, again, my opinion, this has nothing to do with money at all. So I'm looking at this from like a purely Watchtower Bible and Tract Society as a business model perspective. Like, what is their motivation for doing the things that they do from a business analytical perspective. So the very first thing off the top is, do they care about $1 million? I don't really think so. I think people grossly underestimate the amount of resources that Watchtower has available to them. And I think even Watchtower in the past has underestimated the amount of resources available to them through some interesting financial techniques. I think they're getting smart and wise to it and going to be tapping in to their true potential. But we're talking about an organization that, here, I'll put it on screen now, but if my memory serves me correctly, just from their purchasing, maintaining, and renovation of assembly halls and kingdom halls, not including branch offices. I really hope I'm right here. I should have looked at it. Anyway, it doesn't much matter. But just for assembly halls and kingdom halls was more than $500 million in 1 year. 1 year. $500 million spent on just buying land, renovating their properties. That is a lot of money, and that doesn't include some of the most valuable assets that they have, and that is their branch offices around the world. Those puppies are crazy. So does $1 million of state subsidies from Norway matter to a company that is of this size that much? I mean, obviously, it's, money's money and they want more of it, so you can never not account for greed, but I don't think it matters that much. Now, what I said at the very beginning was Watchtower's biggest mistake came from how they handled this right out of the gate. And I feel like the evidence kind of supports that as well, because their initial reaction was, we're not going to change this. Jesus is with us. We're going to show them. They were puffing their chest out and showing their teeth to the Norwegian government. And what happened? We just look at this timeline. Tony Morris gets sacked. He's gone, living the rest of his days in some hodunk town in North Carolina. And yeah, no one's heard from him ever since. New governing body members, all of these changes to the aesthetics of their religion. And now you have a fundamental part of being a Jehovah's Witness, a fundamental teaching of disfellowshipping and not talking to people that are disfellowshipped. That is a really strong core teaching. Would they remove a governing body member and change a core teaching over $1 million or however much it is? I couldn't see them being bothered by that at all. Now, what I could see them willing to fight about is their public image. Now, for a business, a public image is really important for a couple of different reasons. I guess from the Watchtower business model perspective, keeping their members is essential, because a normal company is, let's say you have turnover, right? And so a turnover rate and what you have to do to calculate how much it actually costs a company for, letting go of one person and hiring a new person is somewhere around like 6 months of that person's annual salary. So if they make $100,000 and you have to get rid of them and get someone else new, it's going to cost you $150,000. So the equation is, hey, could we get that person to stay if we offered them $125,000? Okay, maybe it actually makes a lot more sense to keep the people that we have working for us versus, trying to recruit, hire, train, and acclimate. Now wow, that was the loudest I've ever made. Sorry for that mouth noise. Now for Watchtower, their recruitment and all of that stuff is a little bit dynamic, but I don't think the point is lost in how long and how much effort it takes to convert one person into becoming a Jehovah's Witness. All of the time invested in getting one person to join, and they don't have people joining like that anymore. Now, why do they need people to join? Why do they need fresh, healthy bodies? If they spent $500 million for their construction projects, guess what? They rely on that free labor to keep this business model going. Their workforce is their second biggest asset that they have. So they need a constant flow of new Jehovah's Witnesses to help with their construction projects. And that is going to be really hindered if they get the bad publicity that came about from this case. Because if they are unsuccessful and they've been so bombastic about how they're going to fight this, oh, we're going to set up this whole center in Europe to help fight not only this case, but other cases that might arise in the future as well. If they are fighting this tooth and nail, which I don't think they should have done, they need to have some type of positive outcome so they can point it to their current members and say, see, everything's fine now. All of those rumors and things you heard from apostates about what was going on with Norway, turns out they weren't real. That's just classic apostate lies. The Norwegian government has granted our status back, and aren't we happy for this blessing from Jehovah? Jehovah's really blessed us. And hopefully members won't connect the dots of, so you had to change and acquiesce to Satan's system in order to keep going. I don't think that they're going to go through all of this for the cash. I think it's about the people and how they would be affected by it. Because imagine if it's not only in Norway, and now this question pops up. Ah, crap, now we're getting investigated by Finland. And now the Netherlands, and now in Iceland, and now in France, and now in Germany. I don't think it'll happen in America for a really long time. But if these questions keep coming up and they are constantly battling and fighting in court for their legal status just because of this shunning policy, they need to get rid of the shunning policy. They don't need to get rid of the shunning policy. Get rid of it, I should say, modify the shunning policy because they want money. They need to modify the shunning policy to keep their operation afloat, because that will sink your ship. So many holes will be in that ship. It will be a true disaster. Now, the other aspect of this is your reputational currency, I guess you could call it. And that is just of being a bona fide, clean-cut, happy-clappy religion that is respected in the community. Because as long as they can keep that status, that means the taxman ain't going to come and knock on the doors of Watchtower. And that would be detrimental to their long-term viability if they have to start paying property taxes on their vast real estate portfolio. Now, Watchtower is not completely immune to paying taxes, which, again, this is, I think, is another reason why I kind of lean towards thinking that this isn't about money, is whenever they filed their lawsuit against the Russian Federation, hilariously, they admitted that they were willing to pay taxes on for the branch office because they transferred ownership from it being localized in Russia to the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania. And as a foreign corporation, they had to pay property taxes on all of that. So they are more than willing to pay taxes if they think it's going to be help them in a grander scheme. Again, when they bought that Geico building in New York and Long Island, they also paid taxes for that. I covered that in another video. Even paid the property taxes. They said, well, we don't have to do it. We went out of our way. Like, technically speaking, we didn't have to pay it for this year. Here, I'll just play the clip from Robert Hendricks.
Our Real Estate Tax Council has assessed this. And so you might know, we as an organization did not go for an exemption for 2023. We chose instead to pay the taxes. That was really a gesture on the part of the organization because we didn't want you to be left with an unanticipated hole in your budgets.
This reputational currency, I feel, would be more important than just spending a few $1 million here and there to maintain the status quo, to make everyone happy around them. I think a good example of this is the over 2,000 lawsuits that Scientology has filed to get their tax-exempt status. back. They had it for a bit, and then I think they lost it way back in like the 50s or even 60s maybe. I can't exactly remember. It's been a long time since I've read anything about L. Ron Hubbard. But anyway, I think it's a good example of, man, that can be a big old bill that you have to pay. And Scientology they are not even close to the size of portfolio that Watchtower is working with. So I think that it is more important for them to make these changes for their long-term strategy. They want to, okay, if this happened in Norway, it could very well happen in another place. So let's use Norway as a testing ground. Will these changes, I keep saying changes, will these slight modifications be sufficient to satisfy the courts? And if they are, boom, bingo, bango, bongo, we're done. We're good to go, and we can just use this exact same argument. Hopefully we can get our best friends, the European Court of Human Rights, on our side, and we can continue the status quo. Whenever these questions get asked, we will have a automated response, and they can keep the Watchtower machine going. So I guess that kind of encapsulates my sort of hot take here, that it's not about the money whatsoever. And I think the biggest mistake they made was just by talking about it. If they had not said a word, not said a peep, just kind of waited, felt the testing grounds, allowed the rumors or whatever apostates are saying, but not gone on JW broadcast and announced everything as bombastically as they did with Tony Morris, I think they would have been in a lot better of a spot where they could, okay, hey, we don't get our state subsidies. Oh well, no big deal. We'll just keep moving on. We don't really need that money anyway. But because of their own hubris, now they find themselves in this rather precarious situation where they're sort of hoisted by their own petard, forced because of their own poor PR management to change their image. So yeah, I think it's fascinating whenever companies are trying to salvage their reputation, and it's a really interesting way about how different companies go about that, because that reputation is going to be so important for their long-term growth. You know, why does Costco forever have one of the best, easiest return policies ever? You know, you buy some avocados and 2 days later you find one that's moldy. You can go back and they'll give you some fresh avocados or your $8 back. Yippee. You had a TV for a year and you're like, oh man, I gotta move and blah blah blah. Hey, well, what if I see if I can return this to Costco? And they just take it back. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. People obviously abuse the system, but what does Costco have? They have a reputation as a good place for their employees, as a great shopping experience and exceptional value. And so they just continue to do business. That reputation is very important. Whereas if they became stringent and they stopped kowtowing to every Karen with her moldy oranges, they might sort of have that reputational demise and souring that it would ultimately affect their business. So I think Watchtower is in a reputation, PR, whatever you want to call it, a crisis with how they've managed this. And so we're seeing them kind of weasel their way out of it. But hey, I'm all about watching Watchtower weasel their way out of interesting situations that they've created. Again, feel free to disagree with me. I'm not right about everything. The great thing about not being in a cult is that you can disagree with someone and it's totally fine. You can still be friends. Oh, what did old Thomas Jefferson say? Every difference of opinion is not a difference in principle. So yeah, anyway, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. With all of that being said, that's about all I got for you. So stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to show yourself the same kindness as you show to others. And you better have a good ass day.